Alright everyone, welcome back to another episode of Tried Expeditions, and in this episode we are going to continue our Maverick X3 modification series by showing you really one of the final touches here. We've got a couple more videos as far as review videos with products that we're going to be going over. This one being one of the last. This is the sway bar video. And then we are going to be installing some chase lights in the next video. So we'll talk about that next. That's a little bit of a preview of what is to come. I wanted to basically do this video, not so much as an install video, because Shock Therapy could really just not do any of a better job of giving you a good, thorough install video, but more to kind of just compare the two sway bars next to each other. And I don't know if this has really been done so much. I think it really sells the product. Maybe, I don't know why they don't necessarily show you this, but I'm going to just kind of compare them sitting next to each other and kind of show you a couple different views here. Now, I did not go with the Shock Therapy sway bar links. Probably should have, but I did get a good alternative to those, and that is the CT Raceworks sway bar links. I initially had ordered the CT Raceworks links thinking that at least I wanted to replace the links because of all the complaints of how squeaky the original links were, no matter what type of grease that you put to them, or really any of that, that they were pretty noisy and they were pretty junky. So like most things that come on this car, unfortunately. So I wanted to share with you my initial thoughts were just to do the links itself and not do the sway bar. But then as time goes on, you research your product some more, and you realize that and maybe as the budget comes more available, you realize that there's certain parts that you just really want to invest the money on to make sure that you're going to get the best ride and also the best performance out of your car. So looking at this, you can see that the billet aluminum carriers for the sway bar is much beefier, much better looking, and no doubt will perform better and be a better product. A couple more benefits in case you happen to be just now coming along to this product, or maybe came along because you've been watching the series and had not really even thought about a sway bar link, or maybe not even heard of Shock Therapy. They are adjustable, and so I am going to put them in the middle hole, and that is where I'm going to start. And the reason for that thought process is that with the amount of weight on the roof that we've put, stability, especially on the highway, is a pretty big deal for us. And I need to make sure that the sway bars are going to do a good job of trying to keep me flat in the corners and in the turns and the highway turns. As these things do sit up pretty high and they have a high center of gravity, and especially with these 35-inch tires, that's definitely going to be the case. I will tell you that in this stage of the process, I have, in quick order, I have taken out the OEM sway bar. It was not difficult whatsoever. So I know that some of you are a little timid about doing some of the work yourself. I'm not telling you that you should. You should definitely, if you don't feel comfortable, do that. Go get a technician to do it, or take it to your local shop. But I'm just saying, as I've done most of the work on this, except for the front end that RC Enterprise has done, and they ended up doing an excellent job. And really, we'll be talking about these springs, these Shock Therapy springs, more in the future, as we actually get some more real-world experience out of them. I will definitely complete another video that will be the follow-up video to our original Shock Therapy spring video. So I want to get some time behind the wheel, especially doing some off-road driving, before I give you this follow-up video, and and I definitely will share also the performance of the sway bar and what my thoughts are on it as well, and that will be later in this video as we will go out today and do some real world driving. I have been able to drive this car quite a bit now that I've had it back from RC Enterprises, and so I've put about 30 miles on it, so mostly on road, which is my main concern with this sway bar. So that will be something that I will share with you later in the video, and I also will tell you how the rest of the installation goes. So those are initial thoughts. Great quality, no doubt about that. There's definitely, it's a well-proven product, even in the race environment, well-proven. And as far as steering goes, we did end up putting that Hess steering brace in there also, and the CT Raceworks tie rods. So those are in there, and then you can kind of see, basically the Raceworks, CT Raceworks sway bar links in there. So. All right, well, I think I've shared all that I can right now, and then when we do some driving with it, I'll end up doing kind of a wrap-up session for this shorter video and tell you what my thoughts are as far as how it drives and what the improvements are. All right, so the verdict is in on this sway bar. Did about 15 miles on the road, actually, just continuing to break in the X3 and taking advantage of some of this warmer weather before we head out for our first trip. So you will see the video that will be coming to our trip at Hatfield-McCoy, and we'll be hitting the trails hard there and doing some good videoing using the Insta360 camera and also the new DJI FPV drone. So hopefully I don't crash it. But anyways, so about the sway bar, it was a little bit of a bear to get in there, but not too bad. There was a couple of complicating factors, and that was the fact that we had a horn for the street legal conversion that was in the way, so that didn't help. And then also another part of it was on the passenger side. If you have the Hess steering brace, the Zerk on the fitting, the Zerk fitting there on the passenger side sway bar mount, the billet is going to end up pretty much colliding with that Hess brace. So you're going to have to clock it slightly different than they had it, but I think I'm still going to be able to grease it. Worst case scenario, I use like a needle plunger for the grease fitting and get it in that way, but I'm not quite sure if it's going to actually, I might have to end up using like a low profile Zerk greaser. So anyways, worst case scenario, I could always take it loose and then get some grease in there. So if that ends up being the case, it would be nice. Honestly, they could end up putting that Zerk fitting more at like the, looking at it more like the 3 o'clock or the 9 o'clock position instead of like the 7 o'clock or 5 o'clock position, depending on which side it is. And that would be very helpful. Obviously, they're not really endorsing the Hess brace. That's a competing product, really, in my opinion. And I'm not saying they do that on purpose, but you never know. So yeah, just be aware of that. But I torqued everything down, went in there pretty good. I put it in the middle setting, and then let's talk about the drivability of it and just how it felt on the road. The other day it was pretty windy, and I actually noticed the wind was pushing me quite a bit, just because of the fact that the suspension on these cars are so responsive, you know what I mean, and I actually felt a little bit of the wind pushing me. But it wasn't as windy as it was the other day today, but I will tell you that in the corners, I mean, it just really feels really flat, and it was exactly what I was looking for, because you get a big side-by-side like this, and you have the roof rack up there with all the weight, the spare parts, the tools, and just the minimum, in my opinion, to go out into some of these remote areas and just know that you're not going to be stranded. There will be other items, I'm sure, as we take more trips in the vehicle, or I just remember things prior to packing for a larger trip, and some of that will be water and other things in those boxes. We'll obviously try to keep things as low as possible. If we don't have passengers, it will be behind the seats, down low as possible, so that to keep the weight down. But there will be quite a bit of things that will be stored up in there, and then maybe even some things between the boxes that will be ratchet strapped in. So definitely a sway bar was necessary to keep the vehicle stable in the higher speeds going down the highway, and it definitely has accomplished that. I'm, without further testing, I can say that my initial impressions of this sway bar is definitely worth the money. It just really has changed how it feels between the springs and the sway bar alone. One of these days, I'm sure, as I decide to send the shocks in to get them rebuilt, as we get some miles on this vehicle, I'll tell them maybe even to put the IQS, to it, but definitely it'll be revalved, rebuilt, and then possibly the IQS system, depending on just how I see more and more people give feedback with the smart shock system with the IQS. And so, in case you did not know from previous videos, this is a Smart Shocks car. I've taken all the badging off of it, the Turbo RR, the Smart Shocks, the Can-Am, just really everything except for the badge on the front that says BRP. Just kind of want to make it look more like a street car than a side-by-side as much as possible. So that was kind of the idea there, that I want people to look at the vehicle and not even be able to read, oh, Can-Am, okay, well, that's a side-by-side type thing. I want them to look at it and just wonder what the heck that it is. So that was kind of my goal with that. All right, well, I'm rambling on now. I think, if you wanted just another opinion about this sway bar and maybe how it works on a Max and what it looks like, that was my intent with this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell there so you'll be notified of future videos. The next video will most likely be the chase lights installed on the back, the rigid chase lights that we have here staged. Just kind of fighting some paint here. I elected to use some paint that I had left over, and I'm paying the price because it did not work out. So luckily it all came off pretty good with some acetone, and this other cheap paint here that I had around is actually working better than the more expensive stuff. So that's working out. But these chase lights are going to be pretty awesome. They are the rigid brand chase lights. They are not cheap. If you had seen in my previous video, I actually said that I was going to install the Kinimoto ones, but they were out of stock and blaming it on some sick dock workers there in China. So they specifically, in their broken English, were mentioning that. So yeah, so anyways, I was kind of forced to go with the rigids. So all right, well, thank you very much for watching. Everyone be safe out there and take care.